should start getting them on the ice. And again, my daughter would love it, but it's like they're like, okay, and you're going to get kids and they're going to come to the camp. And these are U7, like they're 5-year-old girls. I'm like, okay, like just take a breath. We're not going to have stuffed animals on the ice, but obviously they were brainstorming amongst themselves and thought, hey, let's ask Kim to see how old her daughter is and we'll loop her in. So they're sort of recruiting based on, one played in the NHL, one of the dads, one of the, the other dads played in the O, et cetera, et cetera. So I just thought it was an interesting tidbit that they're now, I guess, hoping that my genetics, maybe my daughter will be better than me, hopefully, is what they're hoping. But I just thought it was interesting that that's how it works at those young age groups. I guess I haven't, I've been at junior so long, you have your pick of the litter. But obviously I'm going to have to get Sammy's daughter to play goalie for us because she's clearly going to be an elite level goalie. So it might be a bit of a commute for you, Sammy, but we'll make it work.
Go ahead, Sammy.
It might be a little bit of a commute for sure. I had actually one of Kenzie's friends who, my daughter's also 5, and played hockey last year. Kenzie just skated and stuff, but this dad was really disappointed that girls hockey does not have is it Super 7s or Super 6s? I'm not sure what it is, but boys hockey has that. So
Super 7s, yeah.
Super 7s. Doesn't want to get his daughter into girls hockey because he just feels like if they don't have that, then, it is basically all downhill. And so, why wouldn't they have that? And he was all over me about it. And why isn't Kenzie going to play Super 7 boys or whatever it is? And I said the same thing. I was like, well, she's okay just playing baseball and soccer and gymnastics right now, we'll just see how it goes. But it's hard to have those conversations when as an elite athlete, your trajectory was different and they all think a certain way. And it's almost like you feel bad saying anything. And so I don't know, Kim, you probably run into this way more in your profession, but what do you say to people to kind of rein it in without, because they have these dreams and these passions and they want the best for their kids. And so what do you say, I guess?
Well, I know for me, I'm lucky because, I didn't learn to play or skate till I was 13. Some would argue I never really did learn to skate, but I could play. So that's like the very easy homegrown answer. I turned out okay, given that trajectory. But, I just emphasize the skill side of it. I said, if you decide you want to be really into it, like spend your money and time on, doing skills. And again, not like fun stuff, but it's the overemphasis on games and tournaments and spring hockey. Oh my God, spring hockey here, wow. You could make a whole living just coaching spring hockey. You never have to work the rest of the year. So that's what I say is obviously multi-sport and do, a bunch of different things. And that never seems to be a problem with the girls, quite honestly. All the kids are in my camp this week. They're all getting changed in the parking lot in the van to go to lacrosse or soccer or whatever. In the girls' game, I don't see a lot of the early specialization that I see that might exist in the boys' side. It really, I don't think is a big issue with the girls. But I just encourage them that, the point is not to get super competitive early. It might, if you want to become really skilled, it is a huge advantage for girls hockey if you're doing more skill clinics and playing more small area games in that, because most girls don't do that early on. So that might set you on a pretty good path, if you can. But again, you get the late bloomers, and I see them all the time who are playing house league last year, make the A team, and then are double A in 2 years. And that still does happen quite a bit in girls hockey.
Well, that's great advice, because I feel like as you and I navigate this world with younger kids, people will try to rope us into those bigger, brighter, the big lights of doing more and putting more money into it. But that's some great advice to be able to give to these parents that I just always feel bad. I don't want to squash their dreams either. I just know it's wrong.
Well, I'll tell you, Sammy, when I'm in the parking lot this week, there's hockey camps running everywhere, right? And I drive my big obnoxious truck with my logo and everything on it. So I get a lot of emails this week from parents of the boys that are on the other side, right? So their son is practicing. They have a daughter who plays. They didn't know I existed. And they're just frantically sending these emails. I'm like, what do you offer this and this and this and this? And it's like, my boy does this. 400 times a week. Like, what do you have for my daughter? And there just seems like this urgency that they must have learned from being on the boys' side. And it just, they're so excited to have something specific for their daughter. And actually, it's been interesting speaking to a few of them, because of course they corner me in the parking lot, which always takes a little longer than I expect. And a lot of them have actually relayed, unfortunately, of the 5 conversations I've had in the last 2 weeks, 3 of them said they had their daughters playing with the boys from a young age, and they didn't have great experiences, that there was some bullying and some picking on. And then they brought them over to the girls, and they thought that the girls weren't quite serious enough. And now their daughters aren't playing because they don't know, like, they don't want to go back to the boys because they were getting picked on or didn't feel included, perhaps. But they didn't feel like the girls were good enough for their daughter, right? And so now a couple of them actually have taken their daughters out, which I don't think is the right solution. But I wasn't aware, I haven't heard stories about that, of girls playing boys at a younger age and really being picked on. I guess I wrongly assumed that once you're 8, 9, 10, 11, and you sort of.
Well, I can certainly tell you that I signed Kenzie up for baseball, and I don't know why I wanted her to play baseball as opposed to softball, but I went to an organization where it's going to be mixed because she does that much better with girls around. And I know that about her. You know that about your kids. And I got the roster, and it was all boys. And so I emailed the organizers, and they're like, well, the coaches are actually 2 females, which is amazing. And so right at the last minute, another girl signed up. So we took her to baseball. And when I was talking to my dad about it, she's like, she'll be fine. You played with all boys your whole time. And I was like, yeah, but 100 of my peers quit and never played. I was the only one, so yeah, one makes it through and it becomes this like great thing, right? But I had to kind of sit my dad down to be like, some kids, that's just not for them. Like, you need to know what is good for your kid. And yeah, anyway, so I found that interesting, that old school mentality despite all of that. So I digress. Tim has a question.
Well, thanks, Sammy. Not a question so much as just a comment, because I always feel like it's so easy for us, and I'm guilty as anybody, to denigrate or be negative about the game playing mentality, basically in Canada, versus practicing and skill development. And as I always am quick to point out, like, there needs to be a balance. I started thinking, like, when Kim said, oh, somebody's recruiting her 5-year-old to start on a team. It's like, well, okay, I'll let her play, but you got to let them play. I don't want her out there being given 1,000 instructions. Let her fall in love with the game. And, Wally, we see this all the time in the work that we did with P3 down in Medicine Hat, all those multiple puck games for the learning kids, so that everybody goes home and has scored a goal and can get excited about the game. I think that gets lost a lot of time, where like we tend to all overcoach and want to impart all of our wisdom on these kids instead of just letting them play the practice. And that would be at the PWHL level too. Why don't we scrimmage more? Why don't we just have more East-West games, let them play and enjoy the game a bit more? So it's always a balance. You can't do all of one, all of the other, but I think that the scale is now tipping to the point where everybody's spending all their time doing skills and practicing, and instead of just playing.
Yeah, and I think what I was speaking about is, that people seem to have this driving desire to play structured games, like what they see, on the television, right? And the score being kept and all of those things. But, it's funny. I said to my daughter, I said, well, if there are other girls your age, would you want to come on the ice with mommy? And she goes, yeah, what are their names? What are the girls' names? And I was like, I don't know their names. She's like, I need to know their names. I was like, oh, okay. So I have to find their names, right? But this is, again, I think sometimes we talked about this, maybe it was last week or the week before, like, I'm asking her whether she wants to do it. And she's not worried about, like, is she going to become an Olympian or something? She doesn't even know what that means. She just wants to, like, know what the girls' names are. So she can go and make some new friends, right? So I think that gave me some good perspective there. But, I do think, if you have parents who have the passion and some baseline knowledge to be able to teach basic skill to these players, because again, as we talked about earlier in the call, I do think that's missing. I do think you have a lot of great volunteers who are happy to help out at the U7 and U9 level with the girls, but they haven't been taught enough of how to run, skill drills that are still fun in small area games. They go right into flow drills, and I'm sure you've all seen flow drills with U7 and U9 players. It takes them 45 minutes to get to the other end of the ice to complete the flow drill because they lose the puck 12 times, So I do think they're, and I think in Europe, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think they have their better coaches actually coaching at the younger levels and developing them early on. So I guess I'll be doing that for a couple of years as my daughters are young, but I do think it is missing. And those coaches, those volunteer coaches know it. They know they don't have the right resources. And because they're not skills instructors, they default to more flow drills or, things they're familiar with from their own playing days. So, I think the education of coaches at those younger ages who are volunteers needs to be better for sure.
I think you're up, Wally.
Yeah, Kim, related to that, before COVID, I was watching a female U12 practice, girls hockey Calgary. They had a real cross-section of kids out there. And the opening activity drill was a neutral zone double touch pass, 2-on-0 rush. Well, and they stayed with it a long time. And there were a couple of players who I think were above the skill of everybody. And I sat there watching. I was supposed to speak to some of the board. Sam in particular was in a board meeting, and I watched this exercise where they really didn't understand the cross section of kids, and it did no good. It was the coaches trying to do a drill they had seen, copied from YouTube, applying it to an age group where they just didn't have the skills to do that drill. And so you're better off to create small area games, increase the activity, and let them play and have fun. If you cannot teach the skills to be done in the drills, that's the